Hey guys, these notes are for dividing polynomials. Our essential question is how can we use previously learned information and apply it to new situations? Dividing polynomials is probably one of the toughest things we do in Unit 6. It just takes a lot of, it's easy once you get the hang of it, but it takes a lot of repetition and a lot of practice, so don't be like upset if you don't get it after 3 or 4 problems. It might take you a while so that you can remember each step. There are pre-AP sections in these notes, so if you are an on-level, you can go ahead and skip the pre-AP sections, but I'm going to go ahead and start. When we're dividing polynomials, we're going to use long division, okay? And so, long division here, let's review. Now, I know you could just pop it in your calculator, but the problem is that I need to know how to do long division by hand because you can't pop these into the calculator. So you need to know how to do these by hand, okay? Now, the first thing you usually ask yourself is, well, how many times does 3 go into 6, right? You're looking at just this first number. I don't care about the rest, just the 6. So, over here, obviously it's 2, but you do 6 divided by 3, right? How many times does 3 go into 6? That's twice, okay? So where does that 2 go? That 2 is going to go above the 6, okay? Now, I know I'm going really slow over long division, and the only reason why I'm doing that is because I'm trying to make sure you understand the steps. I know you know how to do the math. I need you to understand the steps because the steps we take for polynomial division is the same, okay? Once you have this 2 up here, then what do? You do 2 times 3, and you get 6. And that's where you get that down there. Now, after you write the 6 down, what do you normally do? You subtract, okay? 6 minus 6 is 0. And then the next step is you bring down the next term. So after you subtract, you bring down the next term, or the next number, okay? Now, same thing here. You have 3 and 4, and you ask yourself, you're basically going back to square one. How many times does 3 go into 4? So 4 divided by 3, at most, it can go in 1 time, okay? So that 1's going to go up there above the 4, above the tens place. And then you do 3 times 1, right? 3 times 1, which is 3. And then you subtract again. And you get 1. Okay? You're like, okay, now what? Well, once you finish subtracting, you bring down the next thing, 18. And you ask yourself, how many times does 3 go into 18? And you're like, why are you doing all this? Like, we know how to do that. Because I'm going to do it with these. And I'm going to show you that's how you get these numbers up here, okay? 18 divided by 3 is 6, right? It goes in 6 times at most, or perfectly actually, and the 6 goes up there. 3 times 6 is 18. And then you subtract again, and you get 0. So we have no remainders here, so our quotient is 216. Oh, that's an ugly box right there. Okay. Now, how would I check this? Well, I would take 216 times 3, so our check would be 216 times 3, and that would be 648. So you can check that way, okay? But your quotient is 216. I also forgot to mention that, I don't know if we remember these, but this first term is called, or this first number is called our dividend. That's a number that usually goes in the house, in our division house, and 3 is the divisor. Okay, so the divisor is normally on the outside. Okay? If you're an on-level, you can go ahead and skip this problem. If you're in pre-AP, go ahead and keep watching. Since you are in pre-AP, we do with remainders. So let's go ahead and do this. 396 divided by 8. Okay? Remember the dividend goes in the house. And then the first thing you ask yourself is, can 8 go into 3? And you say no. So you can put a 0 there if you'd like, but I'm not going to. Then I go, okay, I'm moving on. How many times does 8 go into 39? So if I do 39 divided by 8, the most it's going to go in is 4 times, which is, let's see, 8 times 4 is 32. Okay? Subtract. I have a 7, bring down the 6. And then you ask yourself, how many times at most does 8 go into 76? Now that obviously doesn't go in evenly, but it can go in at most 9 times. So 8 times 9 is 72. And you subtract. And you have 4. Can you bring anything else down here? No. You could bring down a 0, but we're not going to do that. Now, once you have your remainder, you're not going to put R4 like you did in elementary school. Your remainder is going to go in as a fraction over your divisor. So you have 49, let's actually do it up here. You actually have 49 and 4/8. You take this number, put it up top, you take this outside number and put it in the bottom, okay? So you basically have those left over, okay? But you can reduce that, you can simplify that. You have 49 and 4/8, which equals 49 and 1/2. You always want to simplify your fractions, right? So there is a remainder in this case. Okay, so let's go ahead and use this process to divide polynomials. So here we have x squared plus 4x minus 5 divided by x plus 5. The trinomial, the thing that goes first, the dividend, goes inside the house. Not because it's necessarily bigger, but because it's our dividend. It's what came first in our expression here. Okay? The first thing you're going to ask yourself, right? What did you ask yourself here? How many times does 3 go into 6? You're not asking yourself how many times does 3 go into 6, 48. You're asking how many times does it go into 6. So you're going to do the same thing here. Now, you're only going to look at this first term when you're considering how many times it goes into something. So you're just going to look at the first terms of each, okay? And you ask yourself, how many times does x go into x squared? Okay, so over here I'm going to do x squared divided by x. Right, I'm trying to see how many times does x go into x squared. Just like I did with the last one. How many times does 3 go into 6? So I did 6 divided by 3 and I got 2. Here I do x squared divided by x. What do I get? I have 1 x left over, right? I have 2 x's in the top, 1 in the bottom, I have x left over. That x goes on top of your x squared, because you're saying x times x will give me x squared, okay? Next step, once you write that, you're going to multiply. Now, it's kind of like distributing, okay? I'm trying to take this as slow as possible because long division can be very tough on some people. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do x times x, which is x squared. And we have x times 5, which is positive 5x, okay? I'm going to get rid of those 2 bars up there. So over here, once you wrote that green 6 down, what did we do? We subtracted. Okay, so we're going to subtract here. The problem is that we're subtracting this entire binomial, okay? Now when we subtract this binomial, you must use parentheses and there's a minus sign on the outside, which means I have to distribute. So, -1 times x squared is going to be negative x squared. -1 times 5x is going to be negative 5x, right? So I'm going to go ahead and make that a negative sign. So I'm going to get rid of everything else now. So I have this. Or actually, I'll keep it there because, you know, it's our ugly mess. So we're going to continue. X squared minus x squared. Oh, sorry, my notability froze. Okay, so I have this. All right, x squared minus x squared is 0. Okay. And then 4x minus 5x is negative 1x, okay? Now, after you subtracted, on this one, after we subtracted the 6 and we got 0, what did we do? We brought down the next thing. So you're going to bring down the negative 5, okay? Then, what are you going to do? You're going to repeat this process all over again. So, you're going to ask yourself, how many times does x go into negative 1x? Okay, so that's what we're going to do over here. We're going to do negative 1x divided by x. Okay, that's going to leave us with negative 1. So you're going to write the negative 1 on top. Do you see how these are telling me what are going in my top section here, my quotient part? So those help me. If you don't need to do this part over here on the left, that's okay. If you can do that in your head, that's perfectly fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and multiply now. Once I get that, I multiply. So I have negative 1 times x, right? We're kind of distributing. So we have negative 1x. And then I have negative 1 times 5, which is negative 5. Come on. There we go. Now, I need to subtract everything, right? But when I subtracted, what happened earlier? When I subtracted, all my signs changed opposite. So if I'm going to subtract and distribute the negative 1, I already know my signs are going to flip the other way. So this negative x is going to become a positive, and this negative 5 is going to become a positive. And when I combine these, what happens? I get 0. I get 0 plus 0, right? So everything cancels, and so my quotient is x minus 1. Okay? Now how would I check this? The same way you would check the first problem. You would do 216 times 3. So in this case, we would do x minus 1 times x plus 5. We would take our quotient times our divisor. And then here you would double distribute. X times x is x squared. X times 5 is 5x. Negative 1 times x is negative x, or negative 1x. And then negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. I have like terms. And so that's going to be, oh, my iPad froze. Oh, never mind. Notability, what did you do? Okay. And then I have x squared plus 4x minus 5. Is that what I have in my dividend? Yep. So I did this correctly. I divided correctly. Okay. Moving on to number 2. Okay, we're going to set it up the same. Our dividend goes in the inside of our house, so we have 7m squared minus 60m plus 32. And we have m minus 8 on the outside. Again, you're always going to start this off the same. You're going to ask yourself, what? How many times does m go into 7m squared? Remember, you're only looking at that first term when you ask yourself at the beginning. So you do 7m squared divided by m, right? So that's going to leave us with 7m. And that 7m is going to go up here. Okay? So now you multiply, you distribute basically. What's 7m times m? That's 7m squared. 7m times negative 8, that's negative 56m. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those distribution lines. Now you're going to subtract, right? And when you subtract, your signs change. They're opposite. So this 7m squared is now going to be negative, and this 56m is now going to be positive. Now don't change your signs until you're done with your distributing multiplication thing, okay? After you have both terms here, then you can change your signs. If you are able to do it all in your head at once, that's perfectly fine, but just make sure that you don't change it twice. You only want to change it once, okay? Okay, so 7m squared minus 7m squared is 0. I'm not going to write a 0 there. Negative 60m plus 56m is negative 4m. I'm going to bring down the positive 32. Okay. Now, what next? Then you repeat the same process over again. You're going to ask yourself, how many times does m go into negative 4m? You're going to ask about the first term again. So, long division is just doing the same process over and over again. So how many times does m go into negative 4m? That's going to leave me with negative 4, right? We're just dividing here. M divided by m cancels. The negative 4 is going to go up here. Okay? And then I distribute. What's negative 4 times m? That's negative 4m. Negative 4 times negative 8 is positive 32. Okay? Now remember, when you're adding, or when you're subtracting, my bad, when you're subtracting, your signs change. You're going to subtract now. So this will now become a positive, and this is now a negative. Okay? And when you add them, everything cancels and you get 0. Okay? So your quotient would be 7m minus 4. Okay? All right. So let's move on. So we have Timmy has a rectangular garden with an area of 3x squared plus 5x minus 12 and a width of x plus 3. Find the length of the garden. All right. So first we're talking about area and length and width. So let's find the area formula. Area is length times width. Now what am I looking for? It says to find the length. So I'm looking for length here. So to get length by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by w. Area over w equals length. Okay, well, I know the area. The area is 3x squared plus 5x minus 12. And the width is x plus 3. Okay, let's do our long division. Our dividend is in the top here, so we have 3x squared plus 5x minus 12. And we have x plus 3. Okay. Now, you're going to ask yourself, same thing. How many times does x go into 3x squared? So I'm going to do that over here. 3x squared divided by x. That gives me what? 3x. So we have 3x up here. So I'm going to multiply. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times 3 is positive 9x. Okay, get rid of those. Now I need to subtract. Now when I subtract, my signs will change. They go opposite. So this sign is now a negative, and this sign is now a negative as well. So my blue is my new signs. So 3x squared minus 3x squared is 0. 5x minus 9x is negative 4x. Okay? And then what do you do after you subtract? Then you bring down the next thing, negative 12. And then you're going to continue. You're going to ask yourself, how many times is x going to negative 4x? So we have negative 4x divided by x here. We have negative 4. That negative 4 is going to go up here. Do we see that pattern, how this and this are up here? Okay? And then you're going to distribute. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Oops, I'm sorry. Forgot to silence my phone. Okay. When you subtract, what happens? Signs change. So this is now a positive, this is now a positive, and I have 0. So I have no remainders. So I have 3x minus 4. That is my length. So my length is 3x minus 4. Okay? You're like, what's the width? Well, here you know the width. It's x plus 3, people. Now you can check. You can check and say width times length. So x plus 3 times 3x minus 4. That should give you your area there. Okay? If you're in on level, you can go ahead and stop watching and go ahead and watch the other video for how to do the reducing method. But you can go ahead and stop here. I'm going to go ahead and start the pre-AP section. Okay? Pre-AP. So when we divide, we have remainders. So on level is not going to do remainders, but we're going to do remainders. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to divide like normal using long division. Okay? You're going to put the remainder over the divisor as a fraction. Just like you did in the first problem, right? We had the 4 left over. Where is it? That was our 4 remainder here. And we put it over the 8. We put our remainder over our divisor. We did that over here. Okay? So, again, we're going to use long division like normal. So we have, not yellow, x squared plus 16x plus 52 all over x plus 6. Okay? Again, you're going to ask yourself the same thing. How many times is x going to x squared? Now, you might already know this. I'm going to go ahead and keep writing this over here in case we're still struggling. This is a video, so I have no idea how you're doing, but long division is kind of a trickier topic for some people. So this is going to be x, so you have x on top, and you're going to distribute, basically. X times x is x squared. X times 6 is 6x. Now you're going to subtract. When you subtract, signs change. Minus, minus. X squared minus x squared is 0. 16x minus 6x is 10x. Okay? And then you bring down the next term. Okay? Why is my colors like not staying? Like I'm trying to like keep it on my colors, but it's not staying on my colors. I need to figure out how to do that. Anyways, so then you repeat the same process over again. How many times is x going to 10x? That's going to be 10 times, okay? So you have a positive 10. Whatever sign you have here is going to tell you what goes up there, okay? So if it's a negative 10 down here, then you're going to have a negative 10 up there. Then you distribute. 10 times x is 10x. 10 times 6 is 60, positive 60. Whoops. And you're going to subtract, which changes all your signs. So you have a negative here and a negative here. 10x minus 10x is 0. 52 minus 60 is negative 4. Okay? Now, I don't have any other terms to bring down, right? So I have nothing left. So my quotient here, so far I have x plus 10, but I also have my remainder. And I'm going to add it on, and that's going to be my remainder over my divisor, which is x plus 6. Just like in the first problem, right? We had 4 as our remainder, 8 was our divisor, so we did 4 over 8. So this would be our final answer. Okay? Lastly, we have, so that's the only thing you do different, is that you continue to do the same thing, but once you get your remainder, put it over your divisor. Okay, number 2 is our last one here. So we have 8b squared plus 74b plus 78 divided by b plus 8. Again, first thing you ask yourself, how many times is b going to 8b squared? So 8b squared divided by b is going to be 8b. 8b times b is 8b squared. 8b times 8 is positive 64b. Okay? If you feel pretty confident, go ahead and try this one on your own and see if you got it correct. Okay? You're going to subtract, so you're going to change your signs. So you have 0 there, and you have 74 minus 64, which is 10b. You're going to bring down the next term, 78. Ask yourself again, how many times does b go into 10b, right? This is over and over again. You're going to keep asking yourself, how many times does this go into this? 10b divided by b is going to give me 10. So I have a positive 10 up here. So I'm going to take, I'm going to put 10 times b, which is 10b, 10 times 8, which is 80. And then I'm going to go ahead and combine here. 10b, oh, just kidding, I made a mistake. You're not supposed to add. You're supposed to subtract. So when I subtract, my signs change, which is a negative here and a negative here. Oh, did my canvas freeze? Oh no, not my canvas, my notability. 10b minus 10b is 0. 78 minus 80 is a negative 2. Now negative 2 is our remainder. We can't bring down any other terms. So far we have 8b plus 10 plus negative 2 over b plus 8. Okay? You're going to put your remainder over your divisor. That is it for these notes for dividing using long division. There is a second video for the reducing method, so I told On Level to go watch that after that Timmy problem. So you guys, if you're in pre-AP and you're still listening, you need to watch the other video as well. But that is it for dividing polynomials with long division. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free.